So there was an investigation on May the 6th that indicated a significant number of U.S. police instructors that have ties to white supremacist groups, it said, in America. Now, say a report add that a fast-growing body of evidence showing that a deadly threat inside the U.S. police departments. It said the analysis found that some of the instructional information presented by police trainers was explicitly racist, and that some instructors endorsed and interacted with white supremacist criminal groups such as the Proud Boys. It said the investigation adds to mounting academic research. It said that that audits and news reports saying that demonstrated the pervasiveness of white supremacy in U.S. law enforcement. It's saying the continuing series of incidents documenting the presence of extremist groups and views among law enforcement. Now, I say more and more, they say the evidence suggests white supremacist infiltration of law enforcement the FBI warned about back in 2006 is getting worse, and it points to a desperate need for policies. Well, no, let me tell y'all something about that. It's not about policies. There are already laws on the books against all of this. You need to enforce the law. But the problem is that you have white supremacists that's district attorneys. You have white supremacists who are judges. Oh, an example, the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, that was a white supremacist in a judicial robe. See, that's what we're talking about. You're always pointing out the police, but what about these white supremacist judges? What about these DAs? What about these white supremacist sheriffs? What about them? What about their deputies? What about these COs that's white supremacists? Brothers that been locked up to tell you all them white supremacists that's running around in the jails. It's not just the police. Now, they said that they need to come up with policies to prohibit people who engage in racist conduct or join white supremacist groups from becoming police officers or remaining on the force. It said lawmakers in Washington state, for example, enacted legislation last year that requires the department to inquire into police candidates' ties to extremist groups and allow the state to revoke their certification if they are affiliated with those organizations. That was back in November 2021. And say in California, their legislators, it said consider a small measure of that as well. Now, say the analysis that was reported found that at least 15 self-identified law enforcement trainers and dozens of retired instructors listed in a database of members of the Oath Keepers, one of several violent anti-government groups that led an insurrection on the Capitol on January the 6th. They say one of the trainers was a constitutional sheriff proponent. They say a philosophy which holds that sheriffs have ultimate power to decide what local law is, say rather than simply to enforce it, and say which can be traced back to a racist movement to oppose legal desegregation in the 1950s and 1960s. Now, they said here, and I quote, they said the phenomenon of groupthink is known to exist in law enforcement, and ideologies and worldviews tend to spread. That's according to Avita Johnson, a professor at Georgetown University Law Center. Now, these white supremacists is teaching each other all these, and notice, I want y'all to notice something. They're trained to hurt and harm us, but when it's one of theirs, shooting up the place in Buffalo, shooting up a movie theater, you know, when people watching Batman, okay, when they go into a Walmart, shoot up the place, notice all of them come out and none of them shot dead. They coming out there with the gun and they don't shoot them. It's like they have a rule: you don't shoot no white man that's doing the work of white supremacy. You tell him put the gun down, give him ample chances. Don't you shoot him whatsoever. That's not what you better not do. You understand? We see that is a clear-cut policy, because how many people that we've seen, shooter after shooter after shooter, have walked out and nothing happened to them. But an unarmed black man, unarmed black woman get gunned down, unarmed. Nothing on them at all. They're trained by these white supremacist instructors to kill black people immediately. But when it comes to their own, don't do that, because they're a good soldier for white supremacy. That's the unwritten law. That's when we told y'all they have an immunity of law, no matter what they do. You will never have a just system as long as these white supremacists are running it. Now, they said he also described this a continuing epidemic of white supremacists in police departments, citing a litany of examples of explicit police racism throughout the decades, including reporting that exposed police officer membership in the Klan in Texas in 2001 and in Florida in 2014. It said federal judge in L.A. found that local sheriff's deputies were involved in a neo-Nazi white supremacist gang that targeted black and also Latinos. It said more than 25 years ago in 91, said Johnson said, yet L.A., it say it's still dealing with racist gangs in its police department even today. It say they have been scandals over 100 different police departments in over 40 different states. It say involving in explicit police racism. Now, it said they also published an additional research this year in the wake of the January 6th attack on the Capitol. It say documenting even more high-profile instances, it say, of white supremacy by cops that emerged in just the year or so following the 2019 article, say, including the race soldiers in Wilmington, North Carolina, who inadvertently recorded themselves in 2020 fantasizing about murdering black residents during the race war. A number of additional high-profile examples of explicit race soldiers have emerged even in the few months since Johnson's article was published earlier this year. As a government investigations, it's a release just a month found widespread racism, bigotry, and anti-immigrant sentiment within the Minneapolis Police Department. And saying in police agencies across California, for example, say the threat has been widely acknowledged since at least 2006 by the federal government, which is currently working, they claim, to address its own white supremacist problem in the immigration agencies and the military. Let me tell you something. Everywhere them people are at, it's infested with white supremacists. You hear me? It's no agency out there. Now, it's actually got a solution, but they're not going to take this solution. But when they become in the minority, because that's coming, no matter what they say is coming. So when they become in the minority, how you get them out is just simple. Well, part of your employment, you got to take a lie detector test. And we're going to ask you some simple questions on this lie detector test in order for you to be a police, in order for you to be anything related to law enforcement. First question that we have: do you have any inherent bias toward any group of people outside of your own race? That's the first question. Second question: are you a part of any white supremacist groups or any part of white supremacist message boards? Are you a part of that on any kind of social media platforms? And the third question: have you ever said in your life a racial slur toward any group of people in the past 10 years? I promise you, 9.9999% out of 10, I would say, you say 99, I'm saying 9 out of 10. You're not going to have none of them be no police, because the majority of them is guilty of any of those questions I just asked. That's why they won't do it. But they should do it. They should do that. Put them up there. Ask those questions. Ask those questions of everybody. I'm not saying just target one. You can't just choose them and just say you're going to ask them a question. No, ask it that same question to everybody that's going to be a police. That way, at least if they hired, you know they're not like that. But that system being corrupt to the core. It came from the slave patrol and morphed into the police. But the beginning is anti-black racism. And today it's anti-black racism. This is why black people got to push for federal protection, no different than the AAPI community got. We need money to go to black groups to fight against anti-black racism, just like the AAPI community got. Don't be coming over here to my page telling me why you think we should be getting that. They not going to do anything. Why? Let me tell you something. You the problem, because everybody else get a bag and you sitting up here defeating yourself. I don't like defeatist black people. If you're going to live here in America, fight for your existence. If you're going to live here. Now, if you don't feel like they're not going to do nothing, then hey, I'm a firm believer, get your passport and try something else. But at least when you hear, because I'm a firm believer, how I feel, I'm going to go back and forth. That's my lot in life, to go back and forth, but spending more time out than in. But when I am here, I don't want to be dealing with no white supremacist. So yes, I want things to go right. And black people need to fight for that every step of the way. You pay taxes every day. You pay taxes. Your government is supposed to protect you, not just the AAPI, not just the Mzungu or whoever else they're going to protect. They need to protect black people too. And you need to demand that. You need to demand it because your life is on the line every freaking day with these white supremacists running around because they have allowed them to. Every shooter they had out here, they know who they were because they cousins, they cool. They give each other intel. Hey, go over here with these black people. Pookie and Ray Ray now over there. So go target those old black people over here at the Tops grocery store. See, they give them intel. How many times have you seen the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers dapping up police? Because they on the same team. So it's you know what I'm saying? But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think about this. This is something we already knew, but we got to keep putting it out there because black people got to take this seriously. White supremacists are everywhere. They are everywhere because I told you the culture is white supremacy.